Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Dear honorable guests, dear esteemed faculty members, dear students, families and friends, Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the graduation ceremony of the BA program in Islamic Studies at Cambridge Muslim College. Thank you very much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you sharing with us this significant moment. This cohort is our second cohort on the BA program, a program validated by the Open University, supported by our donors, individuals, and organizations, and taught by Muslim scholars from all around the world. This cohort has joined us through the worldwide pandemic. They faced many hurdles. They passed them all successfully, and they are now standing here as graduates proudly. We are proud of you, and well done, and congratulations. We will start the ceremony, just to not get any delays. The opening will be with Qur'an recitation with Imam Mustafa Sahin. Please take.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن ربكم الله الذي خلق السماوات والأرض في 6 أيام ثم استوى على العرش يغشي الليل النهار يطلبه حثيثا والشمس والقمر يطلبه حثيثا والشمس والقمر والنجوم مسخرات بأمره ألا له الخلق والأمر تبارك الله رب العالمين. ادعوا ربكم تضرعا وخفية إنه لا يحب المعتدين ولا تفسدوا في الأرض بعد إصلاحها وادعوه خوفا وطمعا إن رحمة الله قريب من المحسنين. وهو الذي يرسل الرياح بشرا بين يدي رحمته حتى إذا أقلت سكنت سحابا ثقالا سقناه لبلد ميت فأنزلنا به الماء فأخرجنا به من كل الثمرات كذلك نخرج الموتى لعلكم تذكرون صدق الله العظيم الفاتحة.
Thank you very much, Imam Mustafa, for the beautiful recitation, mashallah. We will start our ceremony with the first speaker, Dr. Talal al-Azem, the academic director in Cambridge Muslim College.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa baraka ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Dean of the college, faculty and colleagues, distinguished guests, and our graduates, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As academic director, it is my great pleasure to welcome all of you as we celebrate the achievements of our students. This cohort, the class of 2023, are really quite a remarkable group. Not only have they overcome the challenge of pursuing their studies during a world-disrupting pandemic. Not only are they the second cohort in the history of the college, of this young institution, to graduate, but rather they are truly remarkable to do one thing above all else. And namely, this is the tawfiq, the divinely granted success that they have been given in acquiring a true and deep understanding of this deen. The noble prophet, Allah bless him and grant him peace, is reported to have said, "Man yuridillahu khayran yufaqqihhu fid-din." Whosoever God wishes well for, He grants deep understanding of this religion. Our age is one of liquidity, an age of fluidity. From east to west, societies are increasingly looking for answers, for solutions, for problems that only a decade or two ago would have been unimaginable. We see and we witness around us in the natural order, in the environment, in the movements and relocations of entire societies from their traditional homelands, changes of a scope and a scale that require ingenuity and require clarity in providing solutions for. And these solutions require an understanding of what is really most important, the true meaning of what it means to be a human being. Over the past 3 years, our graduates today, these graduates have been pursuing a search for such meaning. Through their study of language, through their study of law and of ethics, of logic, of spirituality, of a whole range of disciplines to which they've applied themselves so diligently, they have been on a journey of discovery. And when you speak with them, what you discover yourself is that their studies, taken as a whole, have given a new meaning, a new level of depth of their understanding of what humanity is truly about. That is to say, they have discovered within themselves a capacity to find answers rooted in tradition that speak to the questions of our age. So today, as we gather this morning in celebration of our students and their achievements, it's a day of gratitude, a day of shukr. Gratitude to God the Most High, who has granted our students this knowledge, this most sacred knowledge, and through their studies, shown them how to discover meaning and how to empower other people to do the same. It's a day of gratitude to their families and their friends, without whom our students would not have had these opportunities to begin with. Gratitude to the patrons, supporters, and friends of the college, whose generosity has made this program itself possible. Gratitude to our partners at the Open University and the many others who've put their hands in our hands in creating something that really has no precedent and is doing something quite remarkable. But it is also only right that we express our collective gratitude to our graduates themselves because of the sacrifices they have made for all of us. They have forsaken other opportunities. They have willingly chosen a life of simplicity in pursuit of knowledge. And most importantly, over these past 3 years, and no doubt as they continue forward on this journey of knowledge, they have emptied their hearts from all the different types of things that usually people today are prone to fill their hearts with. A desire for status, a desire for position or for wealth, desires for authority. These things, which often in our modern age of education are what drive people to university and to learn, our students have reflected upon the need for something higher than all of these. And that is to become torch bearers of a light that gives clarity to people. And it is in this spirit that the Prophet Muhammad, Allah bless him and grant him peace, is likewise reported to have said, إِنَّ الْمَلَائِكَةَ لَتَضَعُ أَجْنِحَتَهَا لِطَالِبِ الْعِلْمِ رِضًا بِمَا يَصْنَعُ. Verily, the angels lower their wings in humility for the seeker of knowledge, out of pleasure for what he or she seeks. The tradition continues, those in the heavens and the earth, the very fish in the water, ask God to forgive the person endowed with sacred knowledge. The superiority of the learned Muslim over a mere devotee is like the superiority of the moon over the stars. The learned are heirs of the prophets, and the prophets have not bequeathed dinar nor dirham, they've not bequeathed wealth, but have only left sacred knowledge. And whoever takes it has taken an enormous share. It is because of this trust, this amana, that everything in the cosmos, from the angels in the unseen to the fish in the sea, pray for the person of knowledge. And so as the next step of your journey begins this afternoon, the graduates and all of us are encouraged to reflect on the true sign of this learning having had an effect upon us all. God Most High says in the Qur'an, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. Only those of his slaves, of God's servants, who dread God with due awe are the true possessors of knowledge of him. Those who truly have knowledge of God are those who know him best. So this is the sign. If our knowledge is increasing us in our service to others and through this, our service to God, this is a sign that the knowledge has had its effect upon our hearts, upon our minds, upon our limbs. And this is a sign that as you go forth in ways that those of us at the college could never foresee, careers, paths of service, of khidmah, of futuwah, of selflessness, for the sake of others, this is the sign that you have become a true inheritor of the knowledge of the prophets. Congratulations to you all once again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you very much, Dr. Talal. Indeed, it's a day of gratitude. I will add my voice to yours. Indeed, the graduates are the scholars, the future scholars, the seekers of knowledge. And may Allah help you to continue seeking the knowledge and walk on the path of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We would like to welcome our guest speaker, Dr. Anker Barua, from the Faculty of Divinity in Cambridge University. Please do come.
Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be here in your company, in your midst, and speak to you today. I have been asked to talk to you about my recently published book, The Hindu Self and Its Muslim Neighbors. Having said that, I'm aware that today is your day of graduation, so you have moved beyond the stage where you can be lectured at. So I'm not going to tell you too much about what is in the book. I'm going to give you a bit of a preview into the why of why did I write this book, a bit of a behind-the-scenes preview. Now, let me begin by saying that whenever I'm invited to give lectures here at CMC, whether for the diploma or for the BA, I feel very happy because for me it is a process of homecoming. I almost feel tempted to say for me it is a spiritual experiment of traveling home, but that phrase has been patented by our pioneer and founder, so I shall not use that. So why do I say that for me giving lectures at CMC and even coming to this mosque is this process of homecoming? When I was growing up in Assam, in India, this is a state in the east of India where we get our tea from, in the late 70s, in the early 1980s, I lived in a religiously diverse milieu. Some people on my father's side of the family, through interreligious marriages, are Roman Catholic. And at a certain stage of my life, I lived with them. And you can see the imprint of that part of my life on my CV. But there is a twist to this Abrahamic tale, as there always is one. When I was a very little boy, I lived in the home of my mother's closest friend, who is a Muslim lady. And when I was 4 years old, 5 years old, I did not quite realize that what I'm doing, I'm not just eating good food from my wonderful aunt, I'm also unself-consciously, without realizing it, drawing into myself what I may call the spirit of Islam. And I say this because when I first started studying Islamic theology around the age of 20 or 21, unfortunately, I did not set aside time in my misspent youth to learn Arabic or Persian, so I had to rely on English translations. But with the help of English translations, when I'm able to read Islamic theology, I always feel that this is something that in one sense I have always already known. I mean, the why of it is so clear and so obvious to me. And that is what I mean when I say, for me, giving lectures on Hinduism at CMC is this long, spiraling, oscillatory process of coming home to where I started from. Now, in this book, what I try to do is I try to engage with a question that has haunted me, engaged me, perplexed me, troubled me, distressed me for many, many years now. How may we promote better relations between Hindus and Muslims? And when I say better, what I mean by that is relations that are more historically informed, conceptually precise, and existentially sensitive to our shared frailties, hopes, and aspirations. And what I do in this book is I try to sketch via media between two types of representations of Hindus and Muslims. The first is the one we are all familiar with, that Hindus and Muslims, they belong to two blocks which are locked in a perennial conflict since the beginning of time, a conflict that will be resolved, if at all, only on the Day of Judgment. So that's the one we are familiar with. The other one says that Hindus and Muslims, they have always been best of brothers and sisters. And what I try to show in this book is how Hindu-Muslim relations in Bengal, in West Bengal and Bangladesh over the last 800 years, 600 years, have been modulated by, refracted through the prism of a shifting array of socio-economic factors. So it's not all implacable hostility on the one hand, nor is there some kind of undiluted, unfragmented peace. And that social messiness is what I try to capture. Now, as I said, I will not talk too much about what is in that book, but let me sketch a vision of what I think where we are and which way we should be going. So I'm going to give you I'm going to sketch three scenarios. So scenario one is the ideal one, scenario two is not so ideal, and scenario three is not ideal at all. So scenario one is possibly the scenario we will get to someday, hopefully when we are all in paradise, where Hindus and Muslims are self-consciously aware of the socio-historical forces that have made us who we are today. So we are engaging as real-world flesh and blood Hindus and Muslims from within the densities of our social locations. And we don't just see Muslims as one type, one token of a type, or Hindus as one token of a type. So that is the ideal scenario. The second scenario, which is not so ideal, is when certain types of generalizations or homogenizations begin to appear from the ground. All Muslims are like that. Oh, those Hindus, all Hindus are like that. However, even in scenario number two, there are certain bonds of affectivity between individual Hindus and Muslims. So although these friendships are put under heavy strain because of these backdrop homogenizations, somehow Hindus and Muslims, some of them, can still meet, can still understand each other. The third one is the worst, where we don't want to go. Not only are there these homogenizations impinging on our subjectivities, we have even lost that basic spark of humanity to be able to speak to a Muslim not just as I say, as a token of a type, but also a particular human being in all their socio-cultural, religious complexity. Now, as I said, scenario one is the ideal one. We are not there for better or worse. Scenario three, in many parts of South Asia, possibly we are gradually moving towards the third scenario, but it is still my hope that we are still somewhere at two, and we can consciously try to cultivate spaces, certain kind of social types of affectivities which will resist this movement towards the third scenario. And on this note, let me end by reading out a poem from Qazi Nazrul Islam, who is today regarded as the national poet of Bangladesh. And Nazrul Islam is one of those very significant figures in these processes of making the languages of Islam, infusing them with local color. So what he does, Nazrul Islam, he often uses languages from the Hindu scriptural texts, certain kinds of mythic imageries, and tries to weave them with Quranic templates and prototypes and archetypes. So I'm going to read out first the Bengali version, then I'm going to give you a translation. Now, in the Bengali version, which I'm going to read out to you now, you should be able to hear at least 7 words which are Arabic, but I'm going to say them in the Bengali way. The key word that records is, of course, Nobi, a Nabi for prophet. Nobi mur poroshmoni, Nobi mur sonar khoni, Nobi nam jope jejon, she to do jahaner dhoni. She nam modhu makha, she nam jadu rakha, she name mojnu hoilo, maula amar kader goni. ওই নামে সুর ধরিয়া পাখি যায় গান করিয়া, ওই নামে আকুল হয়ে ফুল ফুটে সোনার বরণী, নিদানে আখের রাতে, তরাইতে ফুল সিরাতে, কান্দারি হইয়া নবী, পার করিবে সেই তরণী. So here is the translation. The Prophet Muhammad is my touchstone. The Prophet Muhammad is my alchemist. The Prophet Muhammad is a field of gold. Chant that name and you will become wealthy in the two worlds, Do Jahan. That name is suffused with nectar. That name is wrapped up in mystery. On that cherished name, all beings become intoxicated, Majnoon, seeking God. Birds sing, echoing that melodious name. Inspired by this name, golden flowers bloom. When I have to cross the river in the hereafter, O Muhammad, as my boatman, as my captain, guide my frail boat. And this is an example of how the language of Islam is, as I said, becoming inculturated. So this idea that the Prophet is my boatman, is my captain, is borrowed and creatively recalibrated by Nozrul, because across many Hindu traditions, many Buddhist traditions, the boatman is a symbol, is a trope of the divine. So in Hindu context, the boatman would be, say, the god Krishna. In Buddhism, the boatman is the Buddha himself. But on this occasion, what Nozrul is doing is very skillfully performing this hermeneutic operation of taking a local language, taking a local idiom, and saying, well, our Prophet, he is the boatman who will guide us into the hereafter. So this is just a brief overview of what I don't say in my book, that I don't say all the things that I've told you today, what went into the making of this book. But I would like to hope that through people like you who are beginning to study Islam in all its complexity, in its trying to go back to its roots, to its foundation, and trying to have this awareness of how the traditions of Islam have shaped our present-day worldviews, our present-day social locations, we can resist the move toward the slide towards scenario 3, both in Europe, in the UK, and in South Asia. I will end on that note.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anker, for the beautiful reminders and the beautiful poem. I'm glad you translated it. It has beautiful meanings. Thank you very much. Now we will have the students coming up to the stage for the student reflections. I would like to call Hamzah, Zahid, and Saffiya Gaffar. Please come.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace and greetings to my esteemed teachers, my dearest peers, my beloved family, honored guests and supporters. It's with great honor that I stand before you to offer some reflections on the journey that our cohort has embarked upon over the past 4 years. For just over half of us, this journey began with the Arabic language in the blessed lands of Morocco. May Allah preserve and protect its people. And so I thought it only appropriate to begin these reflections in the same manner, to mention a few lines from one of the most renowned pieces of prose, Maqamat al-Hariri, with some very minor personal changes. ضعنت إلى CMC عام وباء وبلاء فقابلت فتية عليهم سيم الحجى وطلاوة نجوم الدجى فرافقت صحبا قد شقوا عصا الشقاق وارتضعوا أفاويق الوفاق ومن أجل أساتذتهم فعالمهم علامة كل زمان والحجة البالغة في كل أوان فغمروا الوصيل بالجميل وودعوا معارفهم عوارفهم. And in English, I arrived at CMC in a year of plague and affliction. And there I beheld some youths on whom was the mark of understanding and the brilliance of the stars of the dark. And so I befriended companions who broke the stick of conflict and nourished the bonds of harmony. And oh, but for the one who made their teachers great, for their scholars were the most learned of all times and a clear proof of every age. And so they showered those who arrived at them with goodness and left their benefits for those who came to know them. And I think these lines hone in on 3 of the most central elements of our journey at CMC. Firstly, the arduousness of the path, be it the difficulties of COVID, the all-nighters writing assignments, or the financial exploitation of Bold Brothers charging £5 for coffee. Secondly, the intelligence, wisdom, and compassion of our peers, and the great bonds of friendship that we have forged with one another. And thirdly, the unfaltering brilliance of our teachers who have guided us along the way. And guidance we certainly needed. As I wrote this speech, I reflected on some of the words that I wrote in my personal statement when I was applying to CMC. And I had written that the degree would bridge the chasm between the two universes of discourse in which I found myself, that of traditional Islam and of modernity. And 4 years later, I can say that instead of bridging the chasm for us, CMC threw us in head first. And it gave us no harnesses, but it did give us the tools needed to claw our way back up. It sent us our torch-bearing teachers who opened the doors of light and held our hands as we stepped through them, and also threw pens at sleeping students. It sent us our peers to challenge, shape, and grow with one another. And it sent us an amazing team of staff who worked tirelessly to facilitate our every need. And despite the tools that we were given, we've had our fair share of free falls. At times, we've hit rock bottom. At others, we've fallen, but our fall has been cushioned. But with each slip, we have brushed off the dust and climbed higher than ever before. And as we've attempted to claw our way up, we've struck gold again and again. We've understood what a categorical conjunctive proposition is, and that the Hanifis have a highly literal approach to language. We've used the words ontology and epistemology, and for some of us, mabna and ma'na, so frequently that at times it seemed like we'd forgotten all other words. We've read the books of Imam al-Ghazali, Imam al-Iji, Imam al-Mawsili, and countless other greats. And this, inshallah, will continue to hit gold as we strive onwards, because this journey of sacred knowledge is one that will never end. As the Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith that can be found in Imam al-Suyuti's al-Jami' al-Saghir, seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave, أو كما قال. And Shaykh Sulaiman, a hadith teacher, would be pleased to know that the source has been cross-referenced in the original book on Shamila. And so, as we continue on this journey from cradle to grave, a journey which is ultimately to Allah, let us thank those that Allah has made a means of His assistance. For whoever does not thank others does not thank Allah. I offer a heartfelt thank you to our Dean, Shaykh Abdal Hakim, and our principal, Dr. Rothman, and to each and every one of our teachers, even the ones we scared away. To our peers, without whose suhbah we would have been lost. And to the staff whose unyielding service facilitated so much. And to the donors and the supporters whose generosity proved invaluable. And a huge bout of gratitude is also due to our families, our parents, our spouses, our siblings and children. Without their sacrifices, we could have never completed these 4 years. May Allah raise and reward them all and keep us sincere as we continue to climb towards Him. Jazakallah khairan for listening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Peace and blessings be with you all. Thank you very much.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya, Nabiyyuna Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa ahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. La ilaha illa ant. Subhanak inni kuntu minal zalimin. It's really such a difficult thing to do to try and summarize these 3 years. I'm sure if you spoke to any one of the students, they would tell you that it's been the single most transformative period of their entire life. So I thought, what can I talk about? I mean, I could say that we've done 1,500 hours worth of lectures. I could say we've done 65,000 words of essays and assignments. I could say we've done 40 hours of exams. But those numbers do nothing else but to understate just how intense and fruitful and rewarding these 3 years have been. So I thought I may suggest alternative matrices that we might use to understand what exactly happened over these 3 years. And so those two matrices are gallons of coffee consumed and stacks of cake eaten. What's all that about, you may wonder. So if you walk into the CMC on an average day, you'll see at least half of the students clutching a cup of hot drink or coffee, hopefully recyclable, right, Brandon? As they're trying not to fall asleep because they're so exhausted, they're so tired. And perhaps the teacher might have one as well. And if the teacher doesn't have one of the students will see that and go running out to grab them a hot drink, even if they don't want it. And then you'd walk into the refectory and you'll see cake there for some reason. It was a strange day if there was not a cake at the CMC. We always somehow found reason to buy cake. So why am I talking about coffee and why am I talking about cake? They're symbols of what these 3 years have been. The coffee, it's that we were always exhausted. It's been tough. There's been a pandemic, there's been all sorts of crises, existential crises. It's been a challenging 3 years. We had lectures throughout the day, we had to go home in the evening and prepare for assignments, or at least we were supposed to. We were supposed to prepare for lectures as well. And then we'd end up having these deep existential conversations until 4 a.m., and then we'd be tired and groggy the next morning, much to Sheikh Salman's dismay. So the coffee is about how challenging and how much we've had to give. We've had to put in a lot. What's the cake about? Well, cake is something sweet. The cake represents what we've ingested here, what we've hopefully digested. We've had so much effort put into us by our dear beautiful teachers who have poured in a love of the Qur'an and the Prophet ﷺ directly into us. We've had so much knowledge that we've been exposed to, and knowledge that I hope we can at least show a little bit in our personality, in our characteristics. So if you wonder what happened over these 3 years, think of coffee and think of cake. Think of striving and think of learning. And of course, as my friend Saffiya said, that there's huge thanks that must be given to the college, but also to family and to parents. So to all the family members, if I may address you directly, family is one of the greatest gifts that God has given us. And families they have their own intricacies and dynamics, but whatever those intricacies or dynamics may be, I think you can all be proud of the people you've raised. And I would say thank you to you for doing such a great service to humanity in raising such wonderful human beings. There's somebody else that I need to thank as well, the individual who is perhaps the architect of our time here at CMC and the architect of the college at large, that is Shaykh Abdal Hakim. Shaykh, I will keep it reasonably brief. I just have 2 things to say to you on behalf of the cohort. The first is that I hope we didn't disappoint you too much. And the second is that Jazakallahu khairan. We do have a gift for you, and to prove that we have been paying attention in your lectures, we thought it fitting that it'd be a piece of art, a piece of calligraphy. So may I invite you onto the stage to receive your gift. So just a couple quick notes on that stunning piece of calligraphy. I think firstly I need to thank Sister Saman Farouk, who's the artist behind that. When we asked her to do this, she said she would do it for free because of how much of an honor it is to do something for the college and the Shaykh. Please keep her in your du'as and her family as well. Secondly, Shaykh, there's a game hidden within that piece of artwork as well. There's scattered references to the Hamdiyah within that piece. I hope you'll have a good time finding it all. But I should conclude now, and I will say thank you. It's been a pleasure speaking to you all. My friends, it's been the greatest honor to study with you and to have shared these years with you. And I look forward to sharing the rest of the day with you all. Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Thank you very much, Saffiya and Hamzah, for the beautiful reflections. And we are now on the right time for our sponsor remarks. We have Dr. Sohail Hanif. He is the CEO of the National Zakat Foundation. National Zakat Foundation supported many of our students from this cohort and beyond. And he was a previous faculty members in Cambridge Muslim College. Please do come.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. It's a cause of immense honor and joy and pleasure for me to be standing here today in front of the Dean, my colleagues in the faculty, our partners from the Open University, students who I love so much and I had the honor of welcoming in their first year here on the BA, and the family members who have honored us by sharing with us the fruits of your labor so we could spend some time serving them. I have the odd position of having been both teaching the first year of this cohort and now representing National Zakat Foundation, who funded quite a number of the students in their studies here. What I'd like to say is a little bit about representing the payers of zakat. The people who pay zakat to us, they pay zakat for a particular purpose. Zakat means purification. And so in Islamic teachings, we understand that your wealth is not all yours. And after a passage of time, if you don't expend some of it, the rest of it becomes polluted. So people have been purifying themselves by handing over funds which have come to you. Why are they purifying themselves through you? It's because zakat isn't simply about care for the needy, but it has another dimension to it, which is that zakat is paid Muslim to Muslim. And the point of that is not an exclusivist vision, but it's about developing real ties of solidarity in a faith community. Zakat, along with all of our institutions of the sacred law that you've been studying here, is ultimately about laying the foundations for an ummah to stand. And an ummah is a collective that gathers for a purpose. In Arabic we say, ammahu idha qasadahu. Our ummah is about coming together to go somewhere. So the most important parts, the people at the heart of this collective, are the people who represent purpose. And who are the ones who represent purpose, who show this ummah the way? It's the people represented by the slogan of our college, is that scholars are the inheritors of prophets. And so people have been purifying their wealth to have the honor of giving you an opportunity so you can show us the way. You can remind us when we forget. You can show the way forward when we're confused. And so to represent the givers of zakat, all I wish to remind you of is that within the people whose zakat is given, the category that's most relevant to us here are those who are, in the words of the Qur'an, in the way of God. What does it mean to be in the way of God? It is that your lives, by accepting funding from the Muslim public, and this applies to actually everyone who's connected to the college, including myself in my current position, all of us represent the trust, the support, and of the Muslim public. By receiving this support, they've given us an opportunity, but they've also placed upon us a burden. And what is the burden? Is that we have acknowledged that we will live in the way of God. And so this beginning now is a beginning. And so my only request to you all, on behalf of the many, many people who've, again, sometimes it's £10 and £5, sometimes it's £10,000, but it all comes together to facilitate where we've gotten to today. So in their names, my request to you all is to think about what comes next. What you've learnt on this BA is not ready-made solutions to pass on, because we don't live in a time when you have a ready-made solution, because in 10 years it's no longer going to be necessarily the best solution to give people. What you've learnt here is how to access a deeply profound past and how to reflect upon its contexts, historical contexts, intellectual contexts, and current contexts. You've been given seeds and keys, but it's upon you to take responsibility for nurturing what is within you. And so how do you nurture what you've been given? There's a few things that I would advise. One of them is, the most importantly of, is staying connected to faculty. It's this connection that we've built is going to be the most important connection in our lives. And so don't just run out and say, thanks for the paper, and now it's something else. We always have to stay connected. Find a way to stay connected to your mentors that will help you. The other thing I'd advise is probably the greatest experience on this program was the bonds you formed together. It was the learning that happened outside of the classroom. And so these bonds are going to be the bonds that will nurture you. And to do what you can to honor and maintain the bonds among you, and you will remind each other. And the other part is, with the help of your teachers, my encouragement is to teach. As long as you define the boundaries of that exchange, you start learning and you start growing. You have to nurture the trust that's within you, and people will benefit from you. And so the way of God is a way that lies in front of us. Al-Imam Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Shaybani, he was the student of Abu Hanifa, and he inaugurated this tradition of writing in Islamic law, and he'd stay up late into the night writing. And he would do private lessons, sprinkling water into the eyes of students so they'd stay awake with him. And they'd study. And he would say, how can I sleep at night when the Muslim public is sleeping at night? With the comfort of knowing, if a new problem were to arise, these scholars have solutions for us. So if I were to sleep as well, the whole public is doomed. And I don't say this to you that not to sleep, but this is the aspiration. Our hopes are in you. And so we have to think about how you can serve. And this question of service is not a question of careers. Incomes and arzaq will come to you as they come. Opportunities will come to you as they come. But the point is, the service is what you are bringing into the world. What's your concern that you carry with you? And I wanted to say an interesting thing that happened. I'll end on this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honored me to visit the grave of Abu Hafs al-Kabir in Bukhara about 2 months ago. Abu Hafs al-Kabir is a man who left Bukhara in Central Asia, traveled to Iraq and studied with Imam Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Shaybani, and studied these books, the likes of which had never been authored in the history of Islam, books of Islamic law. And he traveled all the way back to Bukhara and started teaching. That's a story we can all relate to. You left home in search of wisdom, you studied a tradition, and you came back to your homeland. But what unfolded was he laid the seeds for one of the greatest traditions of law, maybe in the history of the world, the Hanafi school of Bukhara. It's a school that laid the foundations for the Ottomans and the Mughals and the Timurids. How many sultans and how many craftsmen and how many mystics and how many sages benefited from a tradition started by a man who just did a very simple act. He had family members, he had supporters who helped him travel, and he came back and he taught. And entire traditions developed off the back of that. That can be our story too. People can come and visit us centuries gone and say, Fahim came from Liverpool, he studied, he went, and a tradition has been established here. And when I was at the grave of Abu Hafs, they have a beautiful tradition, the Uzbeks. They sit on benches and recite a bit of the Qur'an. And so the Qur'an that was recited, that I'll end with, is verses from Surah Al-Baqarah that I understood slightly differently in the context of sitting in front of a very awe-inspiring presence in reality. And the verses go as follows. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ولا تقولوا لمن يقتل في سبيل الله أموات بل أحياء ولكن لا تشعرون. Don't say of those who've died in the way of God, which like I said we all are, by accepting the support of the Muslim public to serve them. Don't say of those who die in the way of God that they are truly dead. Rather they are living, but you don't have sensation. And it was there when I realized that actually Abu Hafs lives in my prayers, and he lives in my classroom. And he lives in all that I'm doing, because this tradition all comes back from him, teachers to texts that I've been benefiting from. And so he lives on with us, and you will live on, and your parents will live on, and all of these £10, £15, £1,000 of supporters are given, they all live on in the work that you're going to be doing next. And then the verse continues to how to be an imam, like such a person. And so the verse says, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. Allah says, I swear that we will wear you out. We will test you with something of fear and something of hunger and something of a loss of wealth or provision or lives. No one will have a smooth sailing. You will have times you'll have the wind knocked out of you. You won't have, maybe you'll have years you won't be able to teach or study. You'll have problems in your health or problems in your lives. That's part of life. But the people who will leave a mark are people who don't forget purpose. That's why the verse continues, وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. Give great news to those people who just persevered. That's what made Abu Hafs. He had tribulation, but he just came back to purpose and he did what his purpose was. We all can do that because difficulties will come. الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ قَالُوا إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. That whenever the things come, which will come to all of us, they remind themselves and those around them that we're just gods. That's what it means to live a life of service. We are in the way of God, we are gods. That's it. And we will go back to Him, and that's what brings them back. أُولَٰئِكَ عَلَيْهِمْ صَلَوَاتٌ مِّن رَبِّهِمْ وَرَحْمَةٌ. Upon those people are the blessings of Allah and His mercy, and part of the blessings is the honoring of their name and the continuation of their efforts. And our hope is through the college, the faculty, through you all, this knowledge will live, and the fruits of your parents and the supporters, we all live through you. وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُهْتَدُونَ. They are the ones who are guided. So all I'll say is welcome to the other side. I look forward to collaborating with you in the good. I look forward to learning from you. And I look forward to seeing what you can offer us of a way forward to how to live, as has been reminding us, as human beings on these British Isles. وَجَزَاكُمُ الْخَيْرَ. Many thanks to Shaykh Abdul Hakim for the opportunities that have been opened up to us through the fruits of these efforts. وَجَزَاكُمُ اللَّهُ خَيْرًا. وَالسَّلَامُ عَلَيْكُمْ وَرَحْمَةُ اللَّهِ.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sohail, for the beautiful reminders for students and for all of us. And it seems there's no end for lots of coffees. You still need sleepless night, I guess. But maybe washing the face with water is a healthier option, like a tradition. So thank you very much. It is now time for the Dean's reflections.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Always colourful occasions, these graduation ceremonies, pageant of learning, one way in which our Islamic tradition converges with our Western tradition. Can you imagine how colourful would have been the ijaza celebrations at the great madrasas of Ottoman Istanbul or Abbasid Baghdad? And why do we do this? Perhaps unusually amongst people of other crafts, in our generally informal, perhaps too informal age. It's because something within us knows that the acquisition of knowledge is the acquisition of an affirmation and sometimes even a deepening of our humanity. Homo sapiens, we know. Perhaps even we have wisdom. It's a hopefully, not sinfully prideful celebration and expression of gratitude for what makes us most representatively human, whatever our civilizational heritage. But clothes have a certain symbolism. They are markers of identity as well. And perhaps that's one place to start my, hopefully not too grim but brief reflections this morning. Not so long ago, I was celebrating a wedding in Paris, Maxim's restaurant. There I was, after the ceremony, in my Ottoman mufti's outfit, with my turban and my robe, perfectly appropriate in that religious setting. But there I was, walking along the Champs-Élysées. There is Chanel, there is Givenchy, there is haute couture, and you can imagine the stares that I attracted. Frowns, those fashionable Parisian ladies with their tiny dogs glaring and glaring and glaring. I first thought, this must be what it's like to wear a hijab in Paris. We men often get off lightly. Then I thought about how these outward forms are starting to become boundary lines, fault lines in our modern unhappy Europe, creeping ever closer, it seems, to exclusionary definitions of what it means to be a European. Paris now has beaches where anything goes sartorially, but you can't really wear a turban or a hijab, and there's increasingly tight laws about what you can wear in schools, public offices, not just in France, but around our liberated Enlightenment European continent. It's a reminder, I suppose, of the importance of what we're trying to do at CMC. We have never been an either-or, East versus West kind of institution. The zero-sum game is too depressing and its outcomes too horrifying. Instead, we're interested in the both-and. Remember the beginning of our Abrahamic story. It's not Isaac or Ishmael, it's Isaac and Ishmael. لا نفرق بين أحد من رسله. The Qur'an says, we make no distinction between any of God's messengers, and there is something of this both and, this inclusion in the way of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that has been our policy in CMC, not to be some kind of ghetto or some kind of channel of westernization, but instead recognizing that on both sides of the alleged divide there are fruits to be plucked in both meadows, and we are strengthened metabolically by seeking out the best in these two great human narratives. One thing we also learn as we seek for a wisdom of inclusion, as we try and figure out what it means to say Europe is our home, despite the glares, is that we recognize that to be part of this ummah, this community of Islam, is not just about geography, but it's history as well. This is a discovery in the soul of the talib ilm, of the seeker of knowledge. As she or he crosses the linguistic hurdles and starts to feel comfortable with those ancient texts and listens to the teacher who is commenting on a commentary of an original text, and you realize that you, as part of the ummah, you are in fellowship with those great minds and souls long ago that abandoned fame and fortune in order to become seekers of sacred knowledge, in order to be nourished from the overflowing gifts of the banquet of the chosen one, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but also the pleasure of inviting other hungry souls to taste the fruit that is available on that table. So to be part of the ummah, and particularly if you're part of the scholarly part of the ummah, is to be part of what is temporal as well as what is geographical, and to find your roots, to find your identity in this confused and confusing world, in those ancient texts, in those great souls who shared as heirs of the Prophet, this is our logo, warathatul anbiya, the merciful openness of the chosen one, who just wanted to help people. That was his mission. He came to help his people. So we are therapists, and we are training in a sort of medicine. And alhamdulillah, as you graduate, you'll be there in a few moments. You're not quite there yet. It's like waiting for the nikah. Alhamdulillah. We recall that we are entering progressively that ancient fellowship of those great minds and those great souls, finding our roots in that great moral and spiritual tradition, communing in a quite real but mysterious way with the souls of those who, even though they are departed, still, across the centuries, embrace us. The ulama, as Imam Shafi'i says, are a single family. So in order to bring about the joy of this day, so many have collaborated and contributed. I turn up sometimes and shake hands and give speeches, but the hard work is done by my colleagues, by the CMC staff, by everybody who inhabits that crowded little building, there in order really to serve ilm, to serve the ulama, to serve this temporal ummah, and also to their families, friends who have been so patient with them as they take time out to study Islam rather than engineering, dentistry, law, like normal, sane human beings. We're very grateful to them as well. Grateful to our donors, to our benefactors, without whom nothing would be possible at all, and who are included in the prophetic saying, Man jahaza ghaziyan faqad ghaza. Whoever equips a warrior has fought in the battle. They too will their share of the reward. Thanks also to our friends, colleagues, brethren at the Open University for opening the doors to accreditation and the necessary disciplines that come with that. Our gratitude is very real. And thanks also, let us say, to our just departed principal, Dr. Abdal Rothman, who worked so very hard and whose energies, the transatlantic spirit, the upbeat American way, is actually quite a good way of injecting energy and enthusiasm into our sometimes a little bit apathetic English way of being. who has now gone for family reasons to live in Abu Dhabi, but who will be continuing on our team, running our hugely successful program in Islamic psychotherapy and management. Our debt to him cannot be overstated. Many others whom I would love to name, unfortunately I cannot. This has been a really collective effort and an encouraging thing, and let this be my final thought, an encouraging recognition of the fact that in our age of polarities, which my colleague Dr. Barua indicated have such dark and terrifying consequences if allowed to continue and metastasize, that there are very many good-hearted human beings who believe in this mission of finding in those ancient texts inspiration for the solution of modern problems, chief amongst which is the problem of just understanding who we are as Muslims, as people who follow a sacred path in a world that finds it increasingly difficult to understand anything beyond the surface of things. So our real gratitude on behalf of the trustees to everybody who have worked so hard and contributed so much and spent so much of their time and treasure in making the CMC dream a reality. So as you go out into the world, do not forget us. We look forward to seeing us. Latif the chef will be very happy to make extra portions for you. Coffee shops will still be open, and inshallah we look forward to benefiting from you. Who knows, even employing you in years to come. This is the beginning and not the end. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Thank you very much, Shaykh Abdul Hakim, for the beautiful reminders about the college policy. We extend our thanks to all our supporters who supported this cohort to graduate. I think it's now the long-awaited moment. We would like to invite students to start queuing to receive their awards, and we'd like to invite Shaykh Abdul Hakim Murad to give the awards. Khubayb Akhtar, who unfortunately couldn't join today. Muhammad Yusuf Asghar, please come. Thank you very much. Saffiya Gaffar. Thank you. Faizan Hakim, who's also unfortunately couldn't join us today. And next, Tayyib Hussein. Fahim Khalil. Muhammad Imran Khan. Ihsanul Qadir Khan. Isma Kausar. Halima Lembada. Brandon Merrifield. Yasmin Mukaddam. James O'Neill. Anjum Saad. Jawad Shah, Hafiza Sultan, Iman Taraburi, who received the Certificate of Higher Education, and last but not least, Hamzah Zahid. And one more small gift, it's the Best Dissertation Awards for Saffiya Gaffar. Please do come up. And thank you very much, Shaykh. Congratulations to all of you, mashallah, and thank you very much. We arrived to the end of the ceremony. We are now closing with Imam Sejad Mekić with the closing supplications.
آمين 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 أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا كثيرا مباركا فيه الحمد لله الذي بنعمته تتم الصالحات اللهم ربنا لك الحمد ولك الشكر كله اللهم ربنا لك الحمد ولك الشكر كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك ولعظيم سلطانك اللهم ربنا صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد عبدك ورسولك النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه كما صليت وسلمت وباركت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد اللهم اجعل مجلسنا هذا مجلسا مباركا واجعله في ميزان حسناتنا يوم نلقاك وأنت راض عنا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم يا رب العالمين بارك في هذه الدفعة يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم اجعلهم خريج معهد أحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم اللهم يا رب العالمين بارك فيهم وفي أهليهم يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم يا رب العالمين بارك في معهد كامبريدج الإسلامي يا أرحم الراحمين واجعله منبعا للدين للعلم والإرشاد يا أرحم الراحمين وللبحث والنشر يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم بارك فيه وفي مؤسسيه يا رب العالمين اللهم بارك في مؤسسه شيخنا علامة شيخ عبد الحكيم مراد وفي أهله يا أرحم الراحمين ففي جهوده برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم بارك في أساتذة وشيوخ هذا المعهد يا أرحم الراحمين في جهودهم فيما نحروا به يا رب العالمين فأنت أعلم به في تجهيز هذه الدفعة تعلما وتأدبا وتربية وتزكية يا رب العالمين فأنت أعلم بهم وبأسمائهم وبأعمالهم وبنياتهم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم بارك في مبرع هذا المعهد المبارك يا رب العالمين كل من ساهم كل يد ساهمت فيه يا أرحم الراحمين من أول الأمر إلى ما لا نهاية له يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم بارك في هذه المدينة يا رب العالمين اللهم بارك في كل من ساهم وشارك في هذا المعهد وفي برنامجه يا أرحم الراحمين ويا الله يا ذا الجلال والإكرام O Allah, O the most kind, the most gracious, the most merciful, we ask you on this blessed day to bless this gathering, to bless our graduates of this year, to bless Cambridge Muslim College and its founder, our Shaykh Abdul Hakim Murad, who has paved so much good and goodness to this city and this land and beyond. O Allah, preserve him, bless him and his family. O Allah, bless and reward every teacher that has taken part in this program of this particular cohort. Bless them and reward them for every letter that they taught those students, every moment they spent with them, teaching them, guiding them. everyone, every guest lecturer, everyone, every member of the staff that has helped the students and everyone else to establish this beautiful program so that many people, with God's permission and willing, will benefit and learn more about the beautiful religion of Islam and our humanity in general. Oh Allah, bless every single person who has contributed and supported this blessed project, this blessed college. Since its inception until this day and beyond, oh Allah, open people's hearts so they keep supporting a project so noble as this, oh Allah. Allow them to take part in it in whatever way you see fit and good. Allahumma wafiqna lima tuhibbuhu wa tardaahu min salihi al-qawli wal-amal. Allahumma barik lana fi a'marina, fi asma'ina, في أبصارنا يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم أغننا بالعلم وزينا بالحلم وأكرمنا بالتقوى وجملنا بالعافية يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا من فضلك وجودك علما وتعليما. يا مفهم سليمان فهمنا، يا معلم موسى وإبراهيم علمنا. أنت علام الغيوب ذو الجلال والإكرام والعزة التي لا ترام. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين بسر الفاتحة.
Thank you very much, Imam Sejad. And we arrived to the end of this ceremony. I would like to ask all our students to go out to the garden for the formal photos, group photos, and for our esteemed guests, if you just go outside, have some fresh air, and we will invite you shortly to the cafe for the refreshment. Jazakumullah khair, and thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.